We're honored today to have board member Chris Kolb with us. Chris, thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for the invitation. It's great.
Well, listen, we wanted to talk about what's going on in the public schools. I'm not sure that the public schools have ever made as much news as they have recently, so I was anxious to bring Chris in and have him talk to us a little bit about what's going on. Chris, as you're a board member, that's correct, and you were elected when?
I was elected last November, so been on the board almost a year.
Okay. What's the experience been like for you?
It's been a whirlwind, to say the least. I can't believe it's already almost December.
Is it hard to be a board member?
11 members have flown by. It's challenging. There's a pretty steep learning curve, but I really enjoy it. I mean, you get to talk to a lot of different people. You get to learn a lot of stuff, try to help them out. So you could make a full-time job out of it if you wanted to.
Is that right?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do most board members have other jobs?
Yeah, unless they're retired. It's an unpaid position. We get a small per diem on meeting days, but other than that, it's an unpaid position.
How'd the public schools get so in the news recently? What's going on with the public schools?
Well, I mean, I think rightfully so. There's a lot of concern about our public. I mean, it's why I ran for office, was that I felt like our school system needed to do better. So, I'm a
In what areas does it need to do better?
Well, I mean, primarily achievement, student success, and primarily student success with our more challenging students. Low-income students, African-American community, English language learners. Special ed, we're just not doing a great job of serving some of those kids.
But there's a controversy regarding how that success is measured. Tell me about that.
Well,
I'm talking about specifically test scores and what systems and all sorts of different types of theories and curriculums that measure success.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of dirty little secret about education is nobody really knows how to measure success.
Well, I mean, I feel like I know how to measure success. It's A, B, C, or D, and are you doing your homework?
Well, that ends up being not a great indicator for some kids.
Educate me. Why is that?
Well, some kids are very intelligent, but the forms of intelligence they might have don't fit neatly into the boxes that we create in traditional education.
Interesting.
So you're seeing these days a lot of people starting to rethink, what a school looks like, what a school day should consist of. Some really non-traditional learning strategies are emerging across the country.
Is the school year too long?
I don't think so. I think it's about the right amount of time.
Starts in the middle of August.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the school year is like, if something's interesting, you don't care how long you're doing it. So what we need to work on is making our school days more engaging for kids, so that school is actually a place where they might even want to be, every now and then.
All right, now, bro, I got to tell you, that sounds very idealistic.
Well, okay? Of course it is, but our current acting superintendent, Dr. Pollio, has had tremendous success doing that at most recently Doss High School.
Tell me about this guy.
Well, he's a really dynamic guy. I've been really impressed with him. Obviously, we're doing a large nationwide search for the permanent superintendent.
Why don't you keep Pollio?
Well, it's definitely a possibility.
Is that what's going to happen?
He'll be a very strong candidate. I would be.
Is he the favorite?
Speaking personally, as one of 7 board members, I would say he's definitely in my top 2.
When do you make the decision on Pollio?
I haven't seen everybody. Well, the final decision will be made as of now, mid-March, April 1st at the latest. We're trying to move that timeline actually up and make it more aggressive if possible, because we got to get somebody in place who can make the tough decisions that need to be made.
Chris, why so long? Just can't we find the person and go?
Well, it's a huge school district with 101,000 kids.
One of the largest in America.
Employees. I think it's about 26 that is around there. And we feel like we owe it to the community to get a lot of input about not only what they want from the leader of our schools, but what they want out of our schools in general. So we've contracted with a local PR firm to help us reach out and get to all different aspects of the community, make sure everybody's voice
Who's the PR firm?
Brandy Carroll Hillage.
So we're using an ad agency to help find our new...
We're using them for their PR, their public outreach.
So let me get this straight. We're using an ad agency to help find our new superintendent.
We're using an ad agency to collect public input for us. So they're going to do focus groups, they're going to do surveys, they're going to go out and meet people where they already gather, churches. They're obviously going to have public forums in each of the school districts.
That sounds like to me. I mean, I'll tell you what, it seems like that's what you guys should be doing. You all decide that. What is Bandy charging JCPS?
I don't remember offhand, but it's in the school board minutes.
Several thousand.
Yeah. But we feel like, I mean, like I said, it's something we owe the community, is to have their voices heard. And the fact is that we, as unpaid, school board members, just don't have the capacity to get out there and listen to as many people as we need to. I mean, I was just talking to Mark Carroll yesterday, and they're going to have at least one, probably more than one meeting a day from now until mid-February to make sure they hear everybody's voice. That's something we just can't do.
We need to know, the public needs to know what the fees are for an ad agency that's helping the board find who the next superintendent is. I've never heard that before.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a new one on us, Chris.
Well, what has happened in the past is that JCPS has used a national search firm to find the superintendent that, my understanding is, charged more than what we are being charged now. So I'd want to look at those figures to make sure that's accurate. But for instance, when Donna Hargens was brought in, there was a search agency out of Nebraska, I think, that was used. And that was a costly thing for the board to do, but they felt like it was worth it. We feel like we don't need a national search firm, but we do need somebody to help us gather community input.
In fairness, I just feel like that's totally ridiculous. The board ought to be deciding that.
And we will.
I'm sure a lot of folks feel the same way. Let's keep moving on.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about safety in schools.
Well, first of all, everybody, on the board that works in JCPS, a parent, as I said, I'm a parent of a JCPS student. Safety is the #1 priority in schools. When we drop our kids off at schools, we have to know we're going to get them back at the end of the day, safe, unharmed. The question that a lot of folks are debating right now is, what is the best way to ensure that that happens?
What's your position?
My position is that there are school systems all over the country. Atlanta and Oakland are two examples where they essentially hire their own security force, so they don't contract with law enforcement, they don't contract with outside agencies, and that way...
Well, like they hire their own Delta force to
No, we...
maintain security in the school?
They hire people that have security experience, but more importantly, have an educational philosophy. So what ends up happening a lot of the times, unfortunately, especially when you've got a lot of kids that have trauma, that are coming from poverty, is that they can get escalated very quickly because they might have post-traumatic stress or dealing with depression and anxiety. There might have been a murder in their neighborhood a few days ago. So a traditional law enforcement approach, unfortunately, that might work okay on the street does not translate well to a school where it can really escalate the situation wildly out of control, which is exactly what happened at J-Town recently.
Okay, so we've seen, many of us, the J-Town footage. Many parents have indicated that that's exactly the reason why we need security in schools. And I'm not talking about security that's passive, aggressive,
right.
Because, we've got 6 foot, 200-pound young people who are attacking each other, who are attacking teachers, who are attacking monitors during the course of the years. And I don't understand the notion that we're not going to have somebody there who can professionally maintain.
We will. There's no question about that.
Who's there now?
Well, it depends on the school. Some school, and this is part of the problem that I'm.
Who's at Atherton?
Atherton, I'm pretty sure has a school resource officer, a LMPD officer. But part of the issue is that we have 5 different agencies in our schools. With the police departments, the board contracts with them, but we have virtually no oversight of those individuals in a school. They're accountable to the police department. So I don't feel like it's a responsible decision of the board to put people in our schools, with a gun and that can, take kids down without them having to be accountable to us.
How do the teachers feel about that?
It's, you get a range of opinions for sure. There are a lot of teachers, and we heard from some of them last night. Our board meeting was at J-Town, and a lot of teachers there are upset about the prospect of potentially losing their school resource officer, and I completely understand that.
School resource officer, yeah, okay, that sounds kind of, but go ahead.
Well, I didn't come up with a name. That's, I'm not sure I like it either.
That sounds like a spin. The ad agency do that too?
No, yeah. I agree with you on this, but what we heard last night from teachers is that, no, they are a resource. They counsel kids, they form relationships with kids. And as I've said every time that I've talked about this, I have no problem believing most, if not every cop and our schools, cares about kids, wants to do a good job.
Agreed.
The fact is, though, when you put somebody with a badge and a gun in a school, no matter what they are like personally, it alters the dynamic in a way that can damage the educational environment.
What is the board for?
Well, the board is to make sure, number one, the superintendent is doing the job they need to do. Number two, get the superintendent and folks that work in our schools the resources that they need to get the results that we're asking them to get. And
that sounds dysfunctional as hell, but go ahead.
Well, what part of it?
All of it. I mean, there's so
depends
many
on the
layers.
people. I mean, yeah.
It's like, well, that's not my job. That's not my job. Well, whose is it? You know.
Well, I mean, I would disagree. I mean, I think that any organization, it's important to have clearly defined roles. You know, you've heard that saying, I'm sure. If it's everybody's job, it's nobody's job. So, you know, we provide strict oversight of the superintendent and his staff, but how he chooses to operate the shop is his call. He's the educational professional. We're citizens.
You're the citizen rep.
Exactly.
All right, let me walk through a scenario. Sure. I saw the J-Town footage, as did most Louisvillians. By the way, over 77% of people in Jefferson County, parents, prefer armed security in the form of police in the public schools. So I want to make sure that, and that's one poll, it's not all of them, but that's one. I want to make sure that you and I have that understanding.
Sure.
Let's say we're over at Atherton High School and an active shooter decides to go into Atherton High School. Would you prefer an officer with an armed officer in Atherton High School at that time, or would you not?
Let me ask you a question. You go to the pool.
No, I ask the questions around here, Chris. Okay, let's be clear about that.
Well, but the example, look, schools are safer spaces than public spaces in general. The chance of a shooter coming into our school are infinitesimal. You know, of course, I have my own ideas about how we could stop that. I'm sure you would disagree with the methods of, you know, restricting guns to certain people, but that's just not. That's not how kids get harmed in school. Kids get harmed in school in ways that having a resource officer there has not been shown to be effective at preventing.
But I'm going to say you're soft on discipline in those schools, and that's part of the problem with these young people.
Larry, my job as a school board member is to make decisions based on facts, on data, on evidence about what is good for kids and teachers in a building. You know, there are criminologists that measure these things, and according to the research, schools are safer now than they have been in the past. Our school staff are very experienced at de-escalating and at using minimal force to get those kids under control.
Well, what about a young man that, as part of school, had both of his legs broken?
Well,
and that was not the police. That
right.
was the school
You're
staff that
absolutely
you're
right.
talking about, because they're not
absolutely right.
professional disciplinarians. They're not professional peacekeepers. They don't know how to de-escalate, and that's why we need police officers in there. And maybe if there had been an officer in that situation with that young child, he wouldn't have had two legs broken, and maybe wouldn't have faced the fight for life that he did.
Here's what my responsibility is as a board member: to put procedures in place and resources in place that will make schools safer. Everybody on all sides of this debate has the same goal, and that's to make sure that kids and teachers are safe in school. The question is, how do we best achieve that goal? The only way I know how to do that is to look at research, is to look at data and evidence that tells us this will make schools safer, this does not make schools safer. Okay, let me give you a perfect example. Detroit, not exactly a city that's known for its safety record these days. School in Detroit had a pretty serious gang fight brewing, to the extent where there were kids coming from outside the school to get involved in this gang fight. One of the, you're not going to believe this, but it's true, you can check it out. One of the gang members said, we need to call a restorative circle and work this out before somebody gets killed. The gang members themselves diffused the situation because they were equipped with the skills to do that. That's what we have to give to teachers and kids, are the skills to actually make our schools safer. That's why those things are happening all over the world, including many school districts in the U.S.
Okay, well, I appreciate and respect your passion.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Manuel and the principal there.
Yeah.
We've got an alumni over there. Statistics, according to the Alumni Association, say that the principal is supported by 90% of the alumni. And many people in Jefferson County feel like maybe there's been a media circle or some kind of initiative to get Jerry Mays, a well-respected man in this community, out of the school. Where do you stand on Jerry Mays?
I don't know Jerry Mays.
Well, you're a member of the school board. What do you want to do with him?
Well, first of all, it's not my role. It would be illegal per state statute for me to direct the superintendent.
But you can use your bully pulpit to say what your opinion is.
My opinion, based on what I have heard, which I fully admit is not every side of the story, is that what I heard on the recording that the students made was troubling. I mean, somebody that works.
What do you want to do about it?
I don't know, honestly.
You can't do that. I mean, you have to have it. See, this is
I don't have all the
this is my issue with the board.
I don't have all the
kind of a, well, we'll put our toe into it, but we're not going to swim in it.
No, don't.
And you guys are in charge of that.
Don't paint me with that brush, because anybody will tell you I have no problem stating my opinion, even if it's unpopular.
What's your opinion of Jerry Mays at DuPont Manual?
My opinion is based on what I know at this point. I'm troubled by what some of the stuff.
Do you want him in or out?
I heard him say it's not my. I could get kicked off the board if I answered that question.
You could get kicked off the board
by our state legislature
because of an opinion you might have regarding leadership in a particular school.
Yes.
Well, we learn something every day.
I know. Listen,
damn bad news.
I would love to have more power as a board member, but the fact is I don't.
Chris Kolb, you are a leader, and I'm glad that you are part of our Jefferson County Public School system.
Well, thank you.
This is Larry Bisig. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I hope we learned something. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Yeah.